Hey, I'm Piera,
And I'm Harley.
and we are casually.
Mental.
I know why this time. That is your reaction. I'm so excited. I'm not excited. I'm just happy to talk about this out loud finally, because when we first started the podcast, this topic was something I was like, let's get uncomfortably into it. And Harley was like, absolutely not. But now something has happened where she is just saying, yeah, let's just do
Fuck
something
it.
happened. So I'm excited. This topic is very near and dear. It's the complexity of family dynamics.
Whew.
Everyone's got them. Everyone's got them.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, once again, I'm always asking, does anybody have a normal family? I think for me, it's interesting because I have a really good relationship with one side of my family, and
hmm.
I love them dearly. They're all a little psychotic. I'm going to shout out my cousin Steven because I'm pretty sure he's the only one that listens to my podcast. This will be a good moment to find out if any other family members listen, but I'm always very cautious about how I talk about my family and what I say. But as we get into this episode more, there was a crazy development, which I feel like I'm finally able to talk about because it doesn't have to do with the one side of the family that I know. And it is to deal with another side of the family that I do not know and has caused a lot of trauma in my life.
Cool. Where do you want to start? Where would you like to start,
Um,
Harley? You want
well,
to
I
start
guess
about the text that started it all, or
Yeah, I mean, and just so everyone knows, as we always kind of start out our podcast, as if you are a normal listener, you know that me and Piera always talk about the subject literally like maybe a day or two before we actually film. So it is like stuff that's currently going on in our lives. And so for me, I think this is kind of a special one because me and Piera talk a lot about like what's going on in our lives as friends. And this is one of the reasons that, in the very beginning, we even wanted to be podcast partners is because I think we both help each other out a lot on our like mental health journeys. And I think this one's definitely a special one because this is actually like real live. Like I found out something. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Piera about it. And she's kind of dealing with the similar situation with her side of the family. And ironically, it's both of our dad's sides. I don't know what that means, but
hmm.
um but it's definitely, I think this will be an interesting one because neither of us even know what each other are going to say in that sense. I don't know, Pierre, if you have anything else to add before we jump into the whole topic.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny. I didn't realize it was your dad's side too. I also only really talk about, I'm very cautious about what I share about my family and my friends and everything in general because I care about everyone's privacy. But it's funny that we're both going to be speaking about this new, quote unquote, side of the family that we're discovering or learning about. And just for some background on me, well, you know what, you go into your story because I feel like if I go into mine, it'll make things a little complicated. So go, let's you just you can't try to like delay it. You stop stalling.
Anymore.
I
Okay,
know you.
so true. Well, okay, so the craziest thing happened literally last night. So it hasn't even been full 24 hours, and I'm still processing this whole thing. But pretty much growing up, I was very close to my mom's side and my dad's side of the family. Both sides, we vacationed with, we did a bunch of stuff with. And then I don't even really know how old I was, but all of a sudden, my dad's side just like dipped out. And to this day, I still don't even know why my mom and dad stopped talking to my uncle and his wife. And the craziest part is that my dad's mother and father both passed away before I was even born. And so my dad grew up with a brother, not much family, no mother and father. And so it's interesting to see the dynamic. So it's kind of, I mean, as an only child for me, it doesn't really make sense why you would stop talking to your sibling, especially because my cousins on my mom's side are literally like my brothers and sisters. Like, if they stop talking to me, I would literally like harass them until they finally talk to me. And so for me, it was crazy because I lost contact with this side of the family. The craziest part is that uh I think for a really long time, I didn't really even think about them. And then right before I went to college, I remember going to my aunt and uncle's house on my dad's side. And they actually gave me a massive check to pay for my college, which was, really generous and nice. And I think got me through most of my college experience if it wasn't for that. And I really did want to reconnect with them. I remember one of my cousins on my dad's side gave me like a harmonica when I was younger, and I like kept it with me forever. So like there was a lot of connection to this side. And then I was just not allowed to talk to them anymore. And even when I was in college, they literally lived like 20 minutes away from my dorm. I remember one time I got swine flu and my parents drove all the way to Richmond to come get me because they didn't want me to go to my aunt and uncle's place, even though they have like a massive house. And like, there's just so many like convoluted things that I just never really understood. And I don't think I really questioned it a lot, because I wanted to respect my parents. But last night, I got a call from my cousin that gave me the harmonica that, of course, I haven't talked to. And I don't even know, like, probably like 20 years, if that. And pretty much he mistook my number for my dad's number. And he pretty much in a voicemail told me that my uncle died. I should have probably said trigger warning before I said that. But I think even for me, I'm still even processing it because it's like an uncle that I was really close with at one point got me through college, but yet I have like no attachment to, and I don't really understand why. And so for me, it's been like the craziest 24 hours just trying to figure out like how to process this. Do I call my cousin back? Of course, I immediately called my dad to tell him that my cousin got the wrong number and yada yada. But I haven't even talked to my cousin yet, because and I've honestly just been trying to debate if I even want to open up that can since it's been closed for so long. I'm also the youngest one out of my aunt, uncle, mom, dad, cousins. So to have to be like the young one reaching out, it's also a little bit frustrating. And I don't want
Yeah.
to, I don't know. It just, to me, I think I have all these abandonment issues built up because I was really close with this side of the family. And then out of unknowing reasons, everything was just completely cut off for me. And to this day, I still have no idea why. And, in my mind, like my aunt and uncle have done nice things for me. Not my aunt, but my uncle has done nice things for me. And I don't know. It's the craziest, like, to pretty
It's a
much find out
lot.
that your uncle died from a call thinking it was your dad saying that he's dead, and then having all these feelings of like abandonment. And like I've been angry, like very angry for the last 24 hours because like angry
Mm,
at my parents for not letting me have that relationship, not even telling me that my uncle was going to die, but also angry at the other side for being like, hey, like why did you guys abandon me, and to be completely honest, like I'm still trying to even debate, like I have to ask my parents. I really just don't know what to do. So, and I know
yeah.
that this is something that you are currently kind of doing this too. So maybe you say your story now, and then we can go into more of an overall conversation so people understand why we're both dealing with the same thing at the same time.
Totally. I mean, sorry for your loss. And also, I think in what you were sharing, it's a lot of inner child things. When you're a kid, you don't have agency. Your parents decide for you for most of it. And we're at this age now, we're trying to work on ourselves and figure out how do we better ourselves, but that comes with family and redefining what family means. So those are just a couple of things that came to mind with me when you were speaking, and it's also a couple of things that have been on my mind because as you know, the past month I've reconnected with my dad's side of the family, and I hadn't, my dad and I have a sort of estranged relationship. I didn't talk to him for maybe 15 years. I mean, the last time I saw him, I was 10 years old. And then somehow we reconnected, and a lot of complicated feelings of just what you're supposed to do, because again, as you're a kid, you're kind of taught like you don't talk to this person in the family, or you don't, my mom always gave me agency, which that's to her credit, but also as a kid, you're like, what am I supposed to do? And it's too much really, responsibility for me. But my story, again, similar to yours, dad's side of the family. And growing up, my parents divorced, I believe, when I was 3, and I had only seen my dad in the summers. And realizing now, I'm speaking as someone who's done the work and am healing through some things, but in the lens of a kid, I saw basically like the highlight reel of my dad, because I would go to Sicily every summer and I'd see him in this one particular way. And then when I was younger, I lived in Italy for a few years and went to school and did all the, like, I had a whole different life. And then it was done after that year of school, because of a lot of like just traumatic things, a lot of just things I won't get into yet. But after that, I didn't talk to my dad. I didn't talk to him for maybe, I think that was, at that point, was 15 years. I didn't want to talk to him. I was angry at him. I was sad. I was all these emotions that, are really complicated. And as you're growing and dealing with adolescence is even more complicated. But this past summer, I've kind of reopened that door to a possible connection of like, who is my dad? Who is this person I could have grown up with? Because I really didn't. I had other father figures. And so it brings like a lot of complexities again on what is family and what does that mean. And I too, Harlee, was like, what am I supposed to do? And like feel through your feelings. And it's just there, you kind of have all the options and no options, which feels very overwhelming. I don't know if you feel the same.
I mean,
Um,
I feel
yeah.
so much of the same because literally it's like, I mean, I didn't even have my cousin's number. And because he accidentally called me, like now I have it. And it's like, do I open that door again? And that's the
Hmm.
thing that's been so, I think I've always wanted to open that door, but I've had it closed so many times because I wasn't given the agency to do it. And obviously, like, my dad is my best friend. So, for me, it's like I want to respect my dad. It's just having that like unknown and only one side of the story. It's like,
Yeah.
it almost is a little bit traumatizing in a way because, for the longest time, I'm like, is it, I mean, I know it's not me, but like, of course, there's a part of you when you're growing up, and all of a sudden, these people who were in your lives so much all of a sudden are just gone. And you're like,
Hmm.
how could you, as a kid, I'm like, I felt really abandoned. And like, I don't, if you know me, like I am on my mom's side so close with my family. Like it's, almost kind of too close on my mom's side. Like we really all are up each other's butts. Like we know each other too well and like always are together. So like for me to have this other side that I just, I don't even know. It's the most bizarre. Like I feel it's like a
It's
movie right
complicated.
now. I definitely am feeling
Yeah.
a little bit even, when I found out yesterday, and because my cousin left a voice message, I literally just started shaking because even just hearing him say his name, I was
Mm.
like it's something that I thought about for years, and now it's kind of coming back up, but I still feel really abandoned by that whole part of the family. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how
That's
if you feel
okay.
abandoned by
Here's
your dad's side of the family too, but it's like this weird abandonment thing that I think is also, my therapist always tries to get me to go to like the root of my abandonment issues
Hmm.
because I have a lot of them. And for me, it was always weird because I'm like, why do I have abandonment issues? Like my parents are wonderful. My mom's side of the family is wonderful. And all of a sudden, like, this just hit me like over the head, like, oh, I have abandonment issues because I was literally abandoned by an entire side of the family. And as a child, I have no idea why. And even to this day, I still have no idea why. And now I don't, and now I can never get my uncle's side because he's now gone,
Yeah.
like that's fucking insane.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can definitely ask if your, dad's comfortable with sharing why, but also as you were speaking, what was coming up was my dad and I have tried to like reconnect once before, and what you said resonates real hard with me because I hadn't spoken to him. I was in college. I was in the cafeteria, and I'm someone who used to, I used to not cry. Like not a single person ever saw me cry. I stone faced, never. And I was in the cafeteria. I hadn't spoken to my dad at that point in 15 years. And all of a sudden, I get this phone call. Weird. They're both phone related things. Okay, I'll
Why do
continue.
people like to just
Uh,
like fucking plop things on it? Like, I'm just gonna call and say, like, I'll leave a voicemail about some crazy thing. Like, great. I'm so glad you
Such a
decided to leave
heavy
it in a
thing.
voicemail. I know.
So heavy. But I was in the cafeteria, and then obviously I'm Italian. So somebody, it was an Italian phone number. So I was like, oh, maybe like my grandpa is in Italy and I didn't know and he wanted to talk to me. I don't know. So I picked up. It was an unknown number, and I was just like, "Hello," and then it was an Italian voice. Like, I have someone who wants to talk to you. I'm like, "Who is even this on the phone?" I have no idea. And I'm literally in the cafeteria. It's packed. It's lunchtime. I will never forget this memory. I also have a one of my best friends who is also there. She vividly remembers it too because she's like, "I've never seen you cry." But I was in there, and I was like, "Okay, like I'm clearly just on this ride of a conversation." But then I hear my dad's voice, and it's like Harlee. The second I heard it, I just tears, whoosh, just like it unlocks something in you because your body is so tied to these moments, and you think you locked them away, and that you think, I'm done. I'm not thinking about it. It's processed. No, it is deep within you, and you need to let that shit out. Like it needs to physically come out of you, whether it's crying or some other way. But uh I remember being in that cafeteria, and I couldn't control it. That was another thing. I could not control my emotions because it was just so overpowering. uh and I just remember my friend being like, "Are you okay? What's like?" She was just mouthing to me because I was just, and then I was replying in Italian. She's like, "Who the fuck do you know that's Italian?" Like she was trying to math. The math wasn't mathing for her.
Oh
And
my
also,
gosh.
I had like a full face of makeup, and it wasn't moving because I was setting powder and spray wasn't a thing, y'all, but when I was in college. So it was, I don't know, something. She's like, "Why are you crying? Are you okay? And how is your makeup not running?" And it was just like this array of just chaos, of care, and then just like humor. And I was just like, what is happening? And as I was, a quote unquote adult, I think I was like 20 at the time or 21. And I now had the responsibility of, what do I want to do? He has opened the door of like, I want to be a dad again to you. What do I want after all these years of not even having any support, like no child support, nothing. The man, I will not do anything bad on this podcast. But uh but it was a lot of responsibility because now it's kind of put on you when it's not for you to figure out. And I ended up in my, my mom was like, "Do whatever you want." She was very supportive, and I ended up meeting him in Florence. And I didn't know at the time I was dissociating. I was just people pleasing. I was like a meet and greet of like, I'm just smiling for the camera, it's 5 minutes, whatever. And then I remember getting home, and my grandpa found out that I met up with my dad, and he was pissed. He was like, "I'm so disappointed in you." And it's like, "Oh, I'm so I was trying to do the right thing for myself and everyone around, but I didn't consider that." So the complexity of family and people's perspectives and expectations again. So in this moment, I mean, do what feels right for you, ask the questions that you want, obviously journal, just get it all out. I don't know if any of that's helpful, but it's also, remember, it's like it's okay that you have no idea what to do right now, and that's totally fine. You don't need to have all the answers right away because it's been less than 24 hours at this point. I'm sure by the time we post this, like you'll think of something or you feel a certain way, but right now it's totally okay to be in this like, what is happening.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've been trying to think about is, and this is a complicated situation, but like I've gone through a lot. We've talked about friends and like, we've had an episode about cutting people out that were not good for you, whatever, whatever, and just kind of like retraining your brain to think of like a more positive thing. And so for me, it's like, am I going, is this something where it's like you treat it as a friend who you were very close with and now you're not anymore, and you just kind of like let it go, but it's like one of those like great mysteries of life where I'm like, what the fuck happened? And what's crazy is like my entire family won't talk about it. So like to this day, I still just don't know, and I don't think it's something that will ever come up. And so that's the thing. It's like I almost have to come to terms. It's like, am I going to keep digging? Like, do I call my cousin and like see if he knows? Like, I don't know. But that's the thing that's like kind of annoying too, is the fact that like, there's not a lot of cousins in the world. And I'll always remember I went to this sleepaway camp and there was this other girl there who was a little bit younger than me named Kosin. And like, again, I have no connection to my dad's side at all. And everyone was like, are you guys related? And Kosin's not a traditional like Jewish last name. So it's very rare to have. And turns out like she was a second cousin of mine. And recently I even tried to reconnect with her on Instagram and she like didn't really care to talk to me. So I'm like, I don't know. It's like this weird thing where it's like, my dad and me are like this. Like, I have a lot of, memories with like Kosin. Like, I honestly, because Kosin's not a normal Jewish last name, like, I almost, even if I ever get married, like, want to keep my last name just because it means a lot to me with like my identity, But at the same time, it's like, it's almost weird because like the Kosin side of the family, like, I have nothing to do with. And so it's like, I don't know. I honestly, I have no idea. And that's why I think with family and everything, like with my mom's side, of course, like we all have a really good relationship. We all have our own shit. There's things that piss me off. There's things that happen with my parents that piss me off, But at the end of the day, like I love the shit out of them. And that's one of the reasons I don't really like to talk about that, everything like that on the podcast, because there's a ton of things I can talk about. But with this thing, I think this is a one thing. And I mean, maybe people can relate where it's just like, having this part of family where you like are literally trying to decide like, do I just let it go and just keep it as a mystery, don't, no harm no foul, don't upset anybody else, or do I like do something for myself knowing that I could uncover something that I maybe don't like? And so it's like,
Mm,
I mean, this has been my like like my thing forever. Like I think I could have maybe dug deeper too and tried to figure it out, because I mean I was living in Richmond with, and they were living in Richmond, so it's not like, you know I couldn't do it. It's just like, I think in my mind, it was something where it was like, don't do it because your parents don't want you to. And I don't know. Like, family is just such a weird thing to me because at the end of the day, like, you didn't choose them. They were almost like you were forced with them. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about family is it's like, I was even looking at pictures of my cousin online and I like saw that me and him have the same nose and I was like, this is crazy. Like it's my own flesh and blood. We have the same nose. We look
yeah,
really similar, but like I do not know this man. And it's just
yeah,
like it is like a mind fuck to know that you share like so many of the same genes. Like even knowing that like my mom, I mean not my dad's mother, his father, and now his brother all died from cancer. Now I'm like, okay, like do I need, and not gonna
yeah.
lie, to be completely honest, one of the things that even kind of jives me is like my parents never told me that my uncle had cancer. And so when I was like, did he die? Like, what's going on? They were like, yeah, he had cancer. And I'm like, isn't this something that I should know about? Because cancer runs really thick on my dad's side. And so it's like, even that, I'm like, isn't this something?
Yeah, for
I
a
don't know.
medical
I,
thing.
I'm,
I'm in the
y'all,
same
I'm
boat,
still tripping
man.
over here. I am like, I'm
That's
literally
okay.
tripping.
That's okay. That's who you are in this moment. That's totally fine. But I agree. I'm also in the same boat. I don't know I still don't know actually, even though I've just started this relationship with my dad. I don't know a lot of the medical things. Like when and I've asked him to, I'm like, do I need to know anything about like medical wise of things in the family? And he's like, I don't think so. I'm like, that's number one, that's not helpful, sir. But number two, for the longest time, I'd be like, well, I know this side of my mom's side of the family, like what to look out for, but I have no idea on my dad's side. And the other piece of it where I'll share, Harlee, is because you're not even deciding yet. Like you get to, go through your feelings and figure out what you want to do. But if you do decide to go through with reaching out, you could totally say like, hey, very just be very blunt, like this is a weird way to reconnect, but like here we are. Would you be open to blah blah blah? You could always ask if you feel comfortable. And where I'm at, because I just started, I mean, I just saw family I hadn't seen in over 20 years. The last time they saw me, I was like 10 years old. So they also have this version of me in their head, and now I've been so many versions of myself since then. You're kind of, you're not going backwards to be like, okay, who were you and like where are you now? It's you're trying to build a relationship off of the one commonality that you have, which is you're related. At least you have that to build off of, which is like slightly awkward of like, hey, like some random reunion picnic barbecue, like, hey, we're related, what's up? But
Hey, I
decide if
talked
you
about
want
you
to,
on
but
my podcast. You want to chat
you
more?
want
Or
to
you just
listen
want
to
to listen to
it.
my podcast and all the issues I have with all of you guys? Great.
Just send all the episodes, like here's how to get to know me in like a couple of hours. That's fine. But it's true, it's like, also with social media, it's just fascinating because you're putting out a side of you that you want to portray. It's not the full story of you. So even if you do connect with your family, they're not seeing the full picture. They're not seeing parts of you that hurt or anything like that. But I mean, for me, it's kind of trippy because I just saw my cousins and they have babies, and I'm, over here just remotely working from random parts of the world. And there's a lot of complexity and all that. In addition, just family is weird. It's complex, and we're all just figuring our shit out. And also, each family has their thing that's whatever. But it's been weird to reconnect with my cousins. It's been nice. But I will say that a feeling that came up in establishing a relationship is a bit of sadness of, oh, I could have had this years ago. Or, ooh, like in another timeline, in another world, like I am best friends with this side of my family, and I might be navigating the world in a different way because that relationship was stronger. So obviously there's pros and cons to everything. My advice is to start with that. Start with the pros and cons list
All I
and
know
how
is
you
that
want
my
to
aunt and
feel.
uncle were rich as fuck and used to take us on their private jet. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why did we stop talking? Like, I could be doing a PJ right now, bitch. Like, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding, but I'm also kidding. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing. At the end
Now
of the
you can't
day,
send this podcast episode, Harlee. You can't. I'm just kidding.
I mean, let's be real. I don't even know if they would watch it. Like honestly, like my feeling, and this is something that I'm trying to overcome, especially in this moment, is like I'm pretty pissed off, like across the board at my parents, at my aunt and uncle, and at my cousins that I don't know. That's on my dad's side, not mom's side. Mom's side's fine, whatever. They're
Y'all
great.
are chill.
They all piss me
Don't
off, but
worry.
like in a loving way. Dad's side, I'm pissed, and I'm trying not to be petty because at the end of the day, I'm trying to take it more as like a because I almost feel like my dad and his brother had this whole petty fight and that just never like fixed
Mm,
it. And in my
yeah.
mind, like I would never ever do that. Like I hate I just feel like I don't like ending things. To be completely honest, when my uncle on my mom's side passed away, like I was really close with him, and there was one thing I was a little bit frustrated about, and I never told him, and it's something that to this day I still wish I told him because my uncle meant on my mom's side meant a lot to me. So his death was pretty like that was pretty sad for me because I just feel like there's like unfinished. I mean, he used to, I don't know,
Yeah.
I was really close to my uncle, and I just wish there's some things that I'd said to him before he passed away. And even with this uncle, I feel the same way. And it's just like this unfinished business that now I'll never be able to finish. And so I'm trying to kind of get this like petty feeling of anger out so that way I can look at
Yeah.
it with like a little bit more of like a clear head,
Yeah.
because I would hate to have another family member pass away with this anger that I'm feeling. And I think eventually,
And
and
it's a
maybe this is
natural
for like,
feeling.
yeah, I think
You're going
eventually,
through all the stages.
yeah, I think eventually I'll probably talk to my cousin, and maybe this is like another podcast for another time, because I feel like for me, I'm super bold, and I think for me, I would love to know, like, why did you never reach out to me? You know what I mean? Like, why did you never try? Like, why me being the youngest one? Like, why do I have to be the person to step forward? Like, did you just nix me out and that's it? And I mean, that's where my abandonment comes through. And so, I
Mm.
mean, that's something where maybe it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm looking for answers in
Yeah.
something that doesn't need answers too. And it's just like, I need to work on my abandonment issues. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
if
I
anyone
think you're
else,
right.
I would love to turn this over to like our audience, because like, I mean, as you can tell, like this is a subject that me and Piera are both literally currently going through in this moment. And I would love to know, like, genuinely, if anyone, and maybe DM us if it's like a little bit hard to put
Personal,
on the
yeah.
post, but I would love to know, like, if anyone doesn't have a relationship with their family and open back up the door, and like what happened on that side, because this is something that I've always wanted to open back up. And it feels a little late now that my uncle passed away, but I almost feel like, and I also found out that my aunt, who was married to my uncle, has dementia. So I don't think this door will ever be able to be opened on my aunt and uncle's side. So the only door I could open would be my cousin's side. And so I don't know. I would love to like literally get advice from people, because I genuinely, I mean, I'm at a loss for words here. It's fucking weird, I have to say.
And that's okay. I mean, it's a strange topic. It's family. It's so freaking complex. And yeah, I mean, even if you don't have the answer today, that's all right. You've talked it out, which is the best possible thing, because you have to release it somehow. And you were, you're in anger right now. See where you're at tomorrow.
Wait, so I have a question for you. So, are you
Yes.
happy that you opened back up the door with your dad?
Yeah, I mean, overall, yes, it's been incredibly complex and emotional. I think what was helpful, and I will also share some people on social. I sometimes would do like a recap of how I was feeling that day, just to hold myself accountable and just to be vulnerable and share with some friends. And in doing that, some people were like, "Oh, I have a strange family too," and you know, everyone has it. They just don't talk about it. But overall, yes, I'm happy. I've restarted that. I do feel it's very heavy because again, I'm the child. Why am I being the one responsible to fix this relationship or be the one to pull it along? But I'm kind of what I've been talking through in therapy is like sometimes you have to be the person who fixes the mess even though you didn't make the mess, because you're going to heal yourself in doing that. It's, for you. I've definitely, since I've been back, felt lighter. I'm not as like heavy and dark and like angry, and I've definitely seen a shift in myself. So I am happy, but there are a lot of complex feelings of like sadness and just frustration of being the one doing it, and also just kind of mourning this childhood I never had and that I will never have, and kind of being like, it is what it is. And I have whatever time I have now, and I'm going to make the most of it and make sure it's what I want and it's on my terms. And I have now the agency as an adult to make this the relationship that will feel fulfilling to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I definitely like that. I think even just hearing you say that, I'm like, okay, maybe do need to reach out to my cousin, because it's maybe it would make me feel lighter after all of these years of having this like pent up anger and resentment towards this like one thing in my family.
Yeah, and even if you reach out and they don't want to reach out to you, you've at least you knocked on the door at least. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if you don't do anything, nothing happens. If you attempt, I'm not telling you what to do, but I'm just saying if you do nothing, nothing will happen. But if you ask your dad to suss it out a little bit, and then if you do want to reach out to your cousin, like go for it and see what happens.
So that so
Complex,
many layers. I mean, that's the thing
so
I think
many.
that I always have a hard time talking about family on either side is just the like layers and complexity of family. It's like I think I felt comfortable talking about this subject only because it's something where like I'm mad about, but if you know me, I'll like I always tell people like I don't have a relationship with my dad's side. And I mean, I think it's an interesting story to find out your uncle died through a missed call from your cousin, like in a voicemail thinking it was your dad, like that's ridiculous, but so I thought it would be a good story. I think maybe I'm still like dealing with it too, but I mean, if there's anything this podcast can do, I'm hoping that it just shows again, like what the first thing we said on our first episode is just telling people like you're not alone in feeling the certain ways. So if anyone's going through like family issues of like not feeling close with somebody or not having a relationship with a certain person, hopefully this episode is a little bit helpful to you to know that you are not alone.
And on that note, we thank you for listening. And if you have family things you want to talk about, our DMs are open. And share this with anyone who you think might need it. Bye.
So that